And welcome back to something I haven't done really in a while. Technically, this is not a top video, but technically it is. It's a video I thought, why not do? A lot of people have done them. Might as well throw my hat into the ring of it. And I've got of a couple different ones to do. So I'm just going to make this now a separate playlist on the channel of the best to worst ranked videos of some genre or some topic. In this case, it is obviously, as you read the title, the Marvel's MCU villains ranked from worst to best. Now, when I say villains, I'm not just talking about the main villains, like the head honcho villain. For instance, Thanos was the main villain in Infinity War, but you had subset of villains there too. You had you had the Black Order in there as well. There's henchmen as well. So, I'm just looking for example, like and Doctor Strange, Dormammu and Caecilius were both villains in there. Nebula was a villain along with Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy. So I spanned the majority of the films. Now there's around 20 films in the Marvel pantheon so far. There's about 33 characters on this list. So I'm going to try to be relatively brief on some of them, go into more detail on a few others. But the way I actually chose this, I'm not going to really go into in depth how I ranked them, but more or less I chose basically 5 attributes. I chose how villainous they really were, like their intimidation factor, how entertaining of a character they were, in their actual matchup against the heroes. How did those fights go? How well were those fights done? Their overall plan and motivation, what their goal was, motivation, and then their long-term effectiveness in the movie and in the long-term the MCU. And I did that on a scale of 0 to 5. So, I'm not saying what the score was. Basically, the maximum they could get was 25. The lowest they could get was 0. Now, I'll say right up front, no character on this list ever got a 0. But I will also say there was only one character who got a 25, who was the number 1. So, we'll get to that when we get there. But let's start worst to best. Let's get to it. Now, at our number 33 spot, I guess is what it is, at the worst, the bottom of the barrel for all the MCU characters, it was Malekith from Thor: The Dark World. Now, here's the issue with Malekith right at the bat. He's in terms of like his intimidation factor, never once in this entire movie was I intimidated by Malekith whatsoever. Like, and I no character was intimidated by him either. Even when he had the Reality Stone, Thor wasn't intimidated by him. I was like, nope, that's the best you got? Come on. He doesn't have an intimidating presence. He doesn't have an intimidating attitude, personality. Doesn't even have an intimidating look because he just looks like every other dark elf. His personality is basically bleh. So I'm just here to move the plot along for other MCU movies. So he just failed in that regard. He's not entertaining at all to watch. He's a dull fest to watch. His fight with Thor it wasn't completely awful. In fact, actually a couple of, out of the 33, very few of these actually had a 0 in their fights because only a couple of them didn't actually fight. But really, break that down. His fight he got his ass kicked by Frida, which was great, entertaining as hell to watch, but ultimately, it doesn't show anything of value towards him. Against Thor, even with the Reality Stone, he couldn't really take Thor on. He was able to overpower him in the end, but Thor was able to outsmart him. So there was that. I will say his plan, at least, it was villainous. I'm going to use the Reality Stone to basically turn the world into dark matter. We're going to get rid of light and everything like that. So, ultimately, though, it's kind of a dumb plan, too. It's like, wait, darkness existed before the universe? What existed before you? Did sheep? And his motivation is just like, I want revenge. Ooh, it's like, that's great. Good for you. There's nothing really entertaining about it. But, I mean, it at least ranked a little higher to me than his actual fight. And then, he had no long-term effectiveness. He did nothing. The only thing he did was basically get the Aether out of that dimension it was in. Ultimately, he ranks the lowest. The next one down was and I believe a couple of these characters actually ranked about the same. The next one down was the Shocker. I shock people. The Shocker. Now, if you don't remember the Shocker, he was in Spider-Man Homecoming. He was played by Logan Marshall Green. And, I mean, he was a little bit more villainous than Malekith because he was just a dude on the street, but he didn't give a crap. Which meant he had no moral standard or code, which at the very end he had a, raggedy beard, which made him look a little bit more unhinged. Which at the very minimum gives him a little bit more intimidation factor than, say, Malekith does. I mean, entertaining wise, he is what he is. He's a blah, blah, blah. So, you get a little bit of entertainment out of him just because of the fact he just doesn't give a crap, but it's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. And his actual one fight he has is one fight. He barely even has a fight. It's just, boom, hit, okay, we're done. Still, better than nothing, I suppose. So, on the scale of the fact that he actually fought, I had to give him at least a point, but he's still the second lowest. Coming in at number 2, coming in at number 31 is the Sovereign from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. They ranked right about this. They ranked exactly the same. They got the same score as Shocker did. They're not intimidating really at all. There's only a few moments where they kind of come off. It's like that entire swarm about to be destroyed. Sure, but they come off they come off as what they are: arrogant egotists who are talk a big game, but really they're not. They talk big shit, but they ain't shit. They just ain't shit. I mean, they are kind of fun to watch though. Watching them act like just grown children who want everything their way and doesn't go their way. So there is that entertainment factor. Ultimately, though, I mean, what was their plan? Going to kill, they had no plan. They weren't actually a true villain. They were an antagonist, which is why they do make this list, but they had no plan. They had no overall. Well, that's actually not. In fact, actually, I should have ranked them a little higher now that I think about that, because their long-term effect on the MCU is they're creating Adam Warlock. So actually, they do have a long. I should have actually by that data standard, I really should have put him higher. I actually should have put him higher. That's my bad on my part. I mean, because they haven't created him yet, but they are creating him, I wouldn't have been able to give them more than maybe like an extra point on there, maybe 2. But from a score perspective, I'm not saying what the actual scores were. Let me just look over this real quick. If I gave them that score, that would put them over. You know what? That would actually, I think, put them actually relatively up in the scale there. Yeah, actually, it would have actually given them quite a boost. But so I'll actually move them up to where I think they're going to be. So anyway, then the next one is one of the newest ones. Oh wait, no, take that back. Next one was Laufey from Thor. Laufey he's got a deep voice. He's like a deep menacing voice, which definitely helps him at least a little bit in terms of his illness side. He is at least kind of entertaining to watch. His overall plan though is just boring. It's like, oh, we're just gonna kill the old father, and only reason he has any long-term effectiveness is because he sired Loki. Loki is his son. So I mean, he came in next. Next is probably one of the newest entries. That's Sonny, or Walton Goggins' character from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Let's be clear. They were comic relief characters more than anything else. Because it's Walton Goggins, there's always an air of intimidation coming off him just because of the way he presents himself and carries himself. But ultimately, yeah, he wasn't intimidating. Though, entertaining? They were entertaining. They were very entertaining. I enjoyed them very much. They have no long-term effect on the MCU, though. There is no fight with them, really, at all. And plan-wise, hey, we're going to use your technology to make money. Good for you. So, Hammer with that. I believe that's the 28th, though, bumping up 29th spot. 27th spot goes to, 30th spot. And 29th spot goes to Justin Hammer. And I need to really speed this up. We're almost at the 10-minute mark. I'm not even a third of the way through here. So, Justin Hammer came in at number 2. Hammer is, well, let's be honest here. Hammer is, where is Hammer? There he is. Hammer is not intimidating at all because he wasn't portrayed to be intimidating or villainous. He is entertaining, though, because he is Sam Rockwell. And Sam Rockwell, unless you don't like him as an actor, which I think very few don't like him, you'll always get some entertainment out of him. And I mean, I give him credit. His plan, he wanted to basically upstart Tony Stark, but he wanted to create his own suits of armor and Iron Man. There's a little creativity in the early phases of the MCU there, so yeah, that's all right. It's okay. Right after that would be the Ravengers. The Ravengers, and I'm not counting Taserface as the main one. Talking about every Ravenger that basically rebelled against Yondu. Where are you? Seriously, where'd you go? Oh, Ravenger, there we go. I mean, there's some villainous moments certainly with them because they like throw people out of that airlock into space. That was actually pretty villainous. That was a pretty dark moment in that movie. They are entertaining because they're entertaining because of their faults more than how effective they are as a villain. Their actual fights, what little they have, do not go in their favor. I mean, it's entertaining, but because it's not in their favor really at all, they just kind of get lucky. It doesn't really aid for them very well. So the Ravagers come in at what would be number 28, and then I'd have to actually push up the Sovereign to number 26, or number 27 because of just rearranging it. So moving on to the actual where everything stands now. Whiplash was number 26. Whiplash was the next one on the list. Whiplash, I get Whiplash with Whiplash. See, Whiplash, because it's Mickey Rook, or now. Is it Mickey Rook? Yeah. Mickey Rook. I feel like that name's wrong, but anyway, because it's him, he's an intimidating looking dude in some regards. Anyway, he's puffy, but he's also jacked. So, and the way they present him, yeah, he's a legitimately intimidating dude. But ultimately, I mean, he's kind of sleepwalking through that movie. His fights are fine. I never once felt like he. Here's the thing: when I rank a fight, I feel A, how entertaining it is, B, how effective the villain is doing against the hero, and C, how much danger I feel the hero's actually in. Now, entertaining wise, they were fine. They were fine fights. How well was he faring? He wasn't doing terrible, but it wasn't like he was dominating the fight really at all. But overall, I never once really, because we were so early on the MCU with Iron Man 2, never felt that the heroes were really in danger. I never really got that impression. Ooh. And his overall plan, I mean, what? His overall plan was, hey, I'm going to get back at Tony Stark, which seems to be a repeated pattern in these movies, for the Iron Man movies. So, yeah. Speaking of Iron Man movies, next one on the list was Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce comes in at the 25 spot of 32. Now, Guy Pearce is, oh, God, I can't remember. See, here's the thing. I said Guy Pearce because I just flat out couldn't remember the guy's name. Aldrich Killian. That's what his name was. And where were you on that list so I can actually get the... sorry, give me one... Oh, here we go. Yeah, I mean, he's Guy Pearce. He's got a swab of smarmy, sophisticated evil about him, but not really villainous, not very intimidating. He's a fun character to watch, but nothing great on that. Entertaining-wise, like I said, he's an okay character to watch because he is Guy Pearce. If you don't like Guy Pearce... Here's the thing. If you don't like any actor that is portraying any of these characters, you're not going to like these characters in terms of entertainment. But if you find these actors, decent actors, or solid actors, or if you're big fans of them, you'll probably find a solid level of entertainment. And I like Guy Pearce. So, yeah, I thought Guy Pearce was entertaining enough as it was. His actual fight is just not really... Iron Man 3 of the 3 Iron Man films had probably the weirdest climax. And Guy Pearce really did. He wasn't the worst fight, certainly, but it was a very weird, very odd plot. But, I mean, his plan, the extremists, again, but it's all just to get back at Tony Stark, so I just... long-term effect in this, I mean, he did force Tony to rethink his life, get his arc reactor and shrapnel taken out, be more serious with Pepper. So there is that, but still. And right following behind him was the Mandarin. Now, here's the thing about the Mandarin. He could have had a seriously high spot in this if it wasn't for the fact that the Mandarin got in Iron Man 3 wasn't really the Mandarin. See, I gave him, like, a few things gave us. I gave the Mandarin a 5 out of 5, the intimidation factor, because Up until we got that reveal, the Mandarin was intimidating as shit. It's like, oh, dude, this is like a serious... Dude, this is all... Ben Kingsley is just... Oh, I was like, oh, they bombed the cities. Patrols, constable got bombed. I did that. And just, yeah. You'll never see me coming. Just, yeah. Up until that reveal, he was fantastic. I think everyone was digging. It's like, oh, Ben Kingsley is killing this. And then we get the reveal, which, from a story element and entertainment-wise, it's funny and entertaining, but not what we wanted. Not what I think the majority of us wanted. So, I mean, that's why entertainment-wise, I did still give him a 3 out of, like, 5. Ultimately, though, everything else, he like, there's no fight with him. There's no plan he has because he's not the real Mandarin, and there's no long-term effect. Unless you watch that short, like, All Hail to the King or something like that, where it turns out there is a real Mandarin. He's not happy with how Guy Pearce and Kingsley did that. So, yeah, it is what it is. Coming in 23 spot, next down on the list, is Ronan the Accuser. And again, we're at 16. I really got to speed this up a bit here, because I don't want to go any... If I can make it to the 30-minute mark, that's fine. I really don't want to go past 30 minutes. I don't like it when I do a video past 30 minutes, if I can help it, because it feels like I've probably been rambling. Ronan, at least from a physical characteristic and some of the stuff he's doing, definitely like smashing that guy's head. He's got a solid look to him. He does kick the ass of some of the Guardians too, and we hear that he completely, like, he wiped out worlds and stuff like that. So he definitely had a villainous edge to him. Certainly he did. The problem is he's got all the entertainment value of a wet sponge. And even that's not quite fair, because a wet sponge can at least clean things. He's such a boring character. Just a dull, boring... Not quite as bad as Malekith, but a dull and boring character. There's only a couple moments where I get any sort of laugh out of him. And that's really just because he's interacting off of other individuals. So, I mean, Ronan just... He's got a cool design. He does some villainous stuff, but his fights are okay. Nothing amazing, but he's overall just kicking the hero's asses. So, yeah, I thought his fights were fine. I think his best fight was probably... the one he had actually with Drax on Nowhere. I thought that was probably his best fight, because we actually see him legitimately fighting. Excuse me. Oh. I mean, his plan... Hey, give him credit. He's I think, one of the first people to actually use an Infinity Stone besides Malekith to try to do something. I mean, yeah, I can argue the Red Skull was trying to do that too, but not in the same level. So, and he almost got away with it until Star-Lord distracted that giant turd blossom with a dance-off. So there is that. Long-term effect, I mean... He did wipe out a sufficient amount of the Nova Corps. So, yeah, you got to give him credit for that. Next on the list, and this is where we start to scale it up quite a bit here, I think, in my ranking system. Actually, no, we don't. He had the same ranking. Dormammu. Dormammu, again, not quite what I want design-wise from Dormammu, but in terms of his actions, just the way he's handling himself, no, he's a solid villain. Unfortunately, he's not the main villain. We might get that later. We'll certainly probably get that later on in Doctor Strange 2 or something along those lines. But yeah, he's not the main, but he's solid. His one match with Doctor Strange, that's a cool fight just because of the nature of the fight, the time loops and everything like that. So I had to give that a solid ranking. He's entertaining enough. He's not boring, but I just wish we had gotten more of him. And plan is just, I'm going to assimilate your entire world. Okay. He has no long-term effect on the MCU, so I didn't give... So he ranked like a 22 out of 33, which is not... That's like 11 down. That's a third of the way. We're a third through. And we really need to start speeding this up, because we're getting close to the 20-minute mark. So Ghost from also Ant-Man and the Wasp was the next one on the list. Who also got... Sorry. Villainous-wise, she's doing some evil shit, but what I think really helped her out in that movie was her plan and motivation. Unlike almost every other MCU villain I've seen, she was a victim. And her villainous actions only came from the fact that she was just trying to survive. There was no evil taking over the world plan, destroying the world plan. No, it's like, I just want to live. Now, granted, she was going to try to kill the Wasp to do that, like Michelle Pfeiffer's original Wasp, that Janet Van Dyne, but still, she just wanted to live, which is why, and she had some very quirky moments at points, too. She at one point was going to threaten Scott's daughter, but Lawrence Fishburne was like, "No, you're not going to do that." Okay, fine. And then, I mean, the plan, like I said, the plan and motivation, and her actual fights are pretty cool too, because it can incorporate phasing and things like that. So overall, she was a pretty decent character, I thought. She was not a bad villain whatsoever. Just remember, we're dealing with like 33 villains here. Moving on, next one up was General Thunderbolt Ross from The Incredible Hulk. John Hurt's got a level of intimidation to him. He's a military guy. He's doing some bad stuff because he thinks he's right, and we know he's not. Entertaining. Most entertaining I've seen John Hurt recently. That's not true. I'd argue Civil War he was more entertaining. But John Hurt's a little bit of a dull, like a monotone dull actor. So he has no fights though, so couldn't really give him a score on that. His plan's boring, but his long-term effectiveness on the MCU, that one I had to actually give a full rating 5 out of 5 because he becomes the Secretary of State and introduces the Accords, which caused the Civil War. So ultimately, you have to give him a lot of credit because he long-term affects the MCU. So General Ross was number 20. On the 19th spot, I went with the 10 Rings. Now, why did I go the 10 ring, or was it the 10 rings? It was the 5 rings. No, it was the 10 rings. Why did I put 5 rings? It was the 5 rings. Anyway, the 5 rings from Iron Man. The original Iron Man. Why? Here's the thing. As a terrorist group, mind you, from their leader terrorists to everyone else and their actions. Understand this. A, on a villain scale, they're legitimate terrorists. They terrorize, they hurt people, they kill people. Right off the bat, and we get that vibe from them too. So I was like, right off the bat, I gotta give them a solid score on that. Entertainment-wise, they're not the dullest. There's some personality there. They're not a bad they're not a bad group. It's kind of cool. I like them like that. I like them for what they are. And their actual mat fights, there's not a lot of fighting, but for what it is, it's not terrible. Honestly, I probably should have ranked it a little lower, but what's done is done. Plan, though, is just, hey, build us weapons. Boring. Now, long-term effectiveness, they ended up making Iron Man. They pretty much made Iron Man. So, yeah, you got to give them something for that. So, the 10 rings, they rank at 19. Next up, we have the Black Order at the 18th spot. 18 out of 33, mind you. Now, I'm not including Ebony Maw because Ebony Maw is the only one who really had a personality and got kind of more time to shine than some of the other ones. So he ranks separate from the rest of the Black Order. The rest of the Black Order, though, they're intimidating enough. I think Obsidian Cull was the most intimidating of them because he looked the best. The other two, I'll admit, still looked a little CGI-ish. But they were villains enough. They don't have a lot of personality, though, so I could only rank them as so high in that regard. Their fights were solid. They had great fights, so I had to almost go a full on 5 out of 5 for that. I went 4. Their plans, they don't have much plans. It's just to appease Thanos, and they have no long-term effect on the MCU. So I couldn't really put them much higher than, say, the 18th spot. But at the 17th spot, we have Nebula. Specifically speaking, Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy. Because in Guardians 2, she kind of stops being a villain on some level, and it becomes more of just more of a anti-hero. Or she's more or less on the side of the good guys. Where did I put her in Guardians 2, or did I just there it is. Yeah. Villainous wise, she's already villainous enough. She's got that voice, when she just reforms herself, that's kind of creepy. And she's just out to kill people. She's honestly out to kill her sister and the Guardians and everything like that. So you have that benefit for her. Her fights are solid. She's entertaining enough to watch. She has no plan, though, is the problem. Well, that's not true. She has a little plan to kill Thanos, which does not go well. And long-term effect on the MCU, Gamora does have to show Thanos a Soul Stone because of her, so there's that, but nothing serious. She has no big impact on the MCU, at least not at this moment. She's still around, though, so that she could. So that puts us to the 16th spot. 16 out of 33. We are nearing the halfway mark. Yellow Jacket from the original Ant-Man came in at number 16 for me. Now, Yellow Jacket, he's your standard business guy, but because of the actor who plays him, I believe it's Kobe Smolder, I think. I could be wrong about that name. he's got a quirky air about him. He's funny, but you can also see he's unhinged. He was unhinged. And the Yellow Jacket suit, while just another, copy of the hero, still was intimidating looking. It was a cool suit. The fight between him and Lang, that was a fun fight. It was. The shrinking, it's like, I'm going to disintegrate you. Play Disintegration by Oasis. That was a fun fight. His overall plan was to be fair, was a bit more unique. It was to create like an army of like Yellow Jackets and sell them. So that was kind of cool as well. Long-term effectiveness though, nothing. The long-term effectiveness, he had nothing going for him. So ultimately, I can only put him at the 16th spot. At the number 15 spot, we have Caecilius from Doctor Strange. He was kind of the, what's the best way to put this? Doctor Strange, yeah. Is that he was basically what Doctor Strange might have ended up being, and that's what a lot of these villains kind of tend to end up being. But I mean, because he's Matt Mikkelsen, again, an air of intimidation about him. He was cutting off people's heads. He was, stabbing people, gutting them, throwing the Ancient One out of basically a portal and down like a couple stories. Now, I will say that he's a little on the dull side, even though I love Matt Mikkelsen. But his fights were solid. The martial arts in there, the effects work, they were good. His overall plan of motivation. See, his plan of motivation, I'll give credit, was a more unique one. It's like, I'm trying to save the world by being in a place without time, without death. I'm the savior of this world, Mr. Strange. So that I thought was at least a better motivation than some of the other villains. That said, he still basically has no long-term impact on the MCU, so I couldn't really go much higher than that. We go to number 14. We are pretty much at the halfway point at this marker. Actually, no, we're beyond the halfway point, I just realized. I'm going to have to go over 30 minutes, unfortunately, but I'm going to speed through this as best I can. That went to Abomination. Abomination. He was solid in terms of his physical appearance and villainous nature. Even before then, you can see, because it's Tim Roth, and Tim Roth's awesome, you could see the villainous nature in him. Entertainment-wise, he was also, because, again, Tim Roth, his fight with Hulk is fantastic. That is a great MCU fight. So that I had to give full marks to. He has no real plan except power and be godlike. And he has no long-term effect, except for the fact he's still alive. He is still alive, and I believe imprisoned on the raft, they say. So there is that. At number 13, we have Obadiah Stane, Jeff Bridges. He was basically, though, the OG MCU villain. Villainous-wise, when Jeff Bridges wants to be villainous, he can be villainous. And he does a good job in some scenes of being villainous. And when he's the Ironmonger, that's a pretty intimidating suit. Let's not kid ourselves. Entertaining-wise, he's Jeff Bridges, so he's always entertaining. Even when it looks like he's sleepwalking through something, which he did not look like he was. He's entertaining. His fight, basically the first supervillain versus superhero fight, and still one of the better fights. Definitely one of the better fights in the MCU. Overall plan was just boring, and his long-term effectiveness didn't mean much. Still, he managed to come in at the number 13 spot. Number 12 is the overall of Hydra. Hail Hydra. Hydra is very unique in the fact that it's existed over many different MCU films, from the Captain America films. I think there's some references of them in Civil War. They're partially in Ultron. So Hydra's been around for a while, and through more than just the Captain America films. But Hydra, villainous-wise, depending on how you look at it, I thought they were solid. They had solid villainous qualities, particularly when you look at some of the other villains in them. Did I? Oh, I forgot to put the Crossbones on here. But he's part of Hydra, so he's counted in this. Because I just realized, he was part of Hydra, and he's not on this list, but whatever. Entertaining-wise, they're on the lower end because they're so all over the place. And one second, did I forget to? I don't think I did. You know what? I did, but I know why I did it. I forgot to put Robert Redford on there, but because he's part of Hydra, I just counted it as one thing. But I mean, their fights. See, Hydra's one of those weird ones that their long-term, they have solid ranking throughout. Their overall plans are domination in a different way, so it's more unique. Their fights, they're all solid. but it's the long-term effect they've had on the MCU. They've been around for a long time, so it's their long-term effect on the MCU that really puts them this high on the list. So at number 12, you have Hydra. We're about to hit the 30-minute mark. We're about to hit the top 10 as well. We're on 11. Zemo. Zemo came in at number 11. Zemo, here's the thing. Zemo is villainous because he's played by Daniel Bruhl, who's villainous in his own right. He has no real fight, so you couldn't really factor that in. The problem is he's not entertaining, and his plan, while good and effective, you didn't need him in the movie is the problem. But he's still, because of the biggest thing that helped rank him this high on the list was honestly the fact that when you factor in his plan and motivation and the fact that it worked, at least for the foreseeable future of the films, I had to put him this high. When you really get down to it, you had to put him this high. If he actually had a legitimate fight and I could have ranked it higher, he might have actually crossed into the top 10, but he didn't. So we're at the top 10 now. Now I can just buzzsaw through these. Ebony Maw. Ebony Maw was the standout of the Black Horde. He's intimidating and creepy as hell. He speaks in a dialect he speaks like a holy man. His powers are unique. His fights are cool. He's very entertaining. He has no long-term effect, unfortunately, on the MCU. And his plan was pretty, basic. But still, Ebony Maw is one of the best Marvel villains in recent time. But coming right after Ebony Maw was Ultron. Ultron, I think, ranks relatively high. Ultron, I think, is I think not enough people give Ultron credit. Ultron is intimidating. He's quirky. He's fun. He's scary. He can be menacing. He can be charming. He can even be sympathetic at points. His plan is basically to obliterate the world, but the way he goes about it is very cool. It's very unique. I mean, Ultron immediately ranked a lot higher than the next one down, than Ebony Maw. And then, you factor his actual fights, the army of Ultron's coming at him fighting through Captain America, him fighting Iron Man. Overall, and then being voiced by James Spader, Ultron is a solid villain. But he's only number 10. He's only number 9. Coming in number 8, I give it to Ego. Ego is unique. Ego is, right off the bat, villainous-wise, he's so villainous in the fact that he doesn't come up. We have a suspicion when we see the movie the first time that he is the villain, maybe. But he comes out this jovial, nice guy. He's fun-loving. He enjoys life, but he's sympathetic. He lost the woman he loved, but the reason he did is because he killed her, because if he stayed, he wasn't leaving, and his purpose is gone. It's so complex and effed up, but so good, because Kurt Russell is awesome in the movie. Kurt Russell is amazing. And the actual fight between Ego and everyone, they're fighting a freaking planet. Come on. His plan and motivation also is really unique compared to any of the other villains in the MCU. He's going to make the entire world himself. The entire galaxy, the entire universe, himself. Everything will be me. And that was really interesting, which really helped his character out. So, yeah, Ego stands firmly for me at number 8. Number 7 goes to Bucky as the Winter Soldier. Now, you can make it argument, hey, that's still Hydra. Yeah, but not... See, whereas Robert Redford is Hydra and a standalone villain, the movie wasn't called whatever Robert Redford's character was called. No, it was called the Winter Soldier. So when you were called the Winter Soldier, your movie's called that, the villain that is named after better be pretty badass, and he was very well handled and very badass. 1 second. There we go. So just from a villain, he almost never talks. Get that stinger music. He can kick Cap's ass in a straight fight. They're all basically even apart. The metal arm, the fact that he has no qualms of killing people. He was just intimidating. Entertainment-wise, there's never a dull moment when Winter Soldier is on screen. Almost never. His fights, some of the best choreography in the MCU. His overall plan, his overall plan and motivations is kind of what killed his score more or less in the long term, because he is a puppet, to be fair, but he's still the main bad guy in many ways. So he doesn't have a plan or motivation. He's just following orders. And long-term effectiveness, they here fix Bucky. He's the MacGuffin in Civil War, and then they bring him back in Infinity War. So, yeah. Number 6, we're getting close to the top 5, and we might even go to 40 minutes. I don't like doing videos this long, but it is what it is. is Hela from Thor Ragnarok. Hela, for of all the MCU women, I argue Kate Blanchett as Hela may have been the most sexy. That might have been the sexiest MCU female character I've seen. That's just my opinion. I don't know, something about the black hair, the outfit, the makeup, the eyeshadow. Now take out the horns too. I'm just like, oh, and Kate Blanchett's a gorgeous woman to begin with. So I'm just like, oh. And that's coming from someone like Gamora's always held down as gorgeous. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow's gorgeous. But Jesus. But regardless, she's also one of the most intimidating looking too. She looks like someone because of the sunken in eye makeup, because of just how black and dark and lifeless her hair and the way she carries herself, her tone, the way that she has no qualms about killing anyone. She is villainous as hell and entertaining as hell too. I mean, entertaining as Hela, if you will. I mean, there's not a moment on screen where you're thinking, oh, if they're not digging this guy. No, you're like, what the hell is she gonna do now? I'm gonna resurrect my Fenrir. I'm gonna resurrect a demon army. I'm gonna take Asgard by storm. I'm going to just try to take on Surtur, who I didn't put on this list because really, while he's a villain, he wasn't a villain, so I actually couldn't really count him. Now, the only problems I really had, besides her long-term effectiveness, were she kind of inadvertently resulted in the destruction of Asgard. So that's long-term effectiveness, and the death of Odin is brought on by her too, is the fact that her plan is just to rule. Not a good plan, not a fun plan, not very interesting. So that unfortunately killed her ranking a bit in the list. But now we're at my top 5. We're at the top 5 now. So the top 5 MCU villains are, at number 5, we have the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. Expertly done by Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton may be one of the most intimidating sons of bitches we've had in the MCU. When that moment, when he has Peter Parker in the back seat, and he's just talking to him, just like, and he has to say, you don't mess with me, because I will kill you, everyone you love. It's like, yes, sir. Just so you can hear a pin drop. He's entertaining because he's Michael Keaton. He's Batman, for God's sake. His fights also are cool. The way they incorporated the Vulture in this series is a cool thing. A cool way they did it. His plan was unique. I give him a pretty high score because while his plan is just selling arms, it's the motivation behind the plan. He's just doing it to support his family because the system screwed the little guy out. So ultimately, he's the blue-collar villain. He's the blue-collar guy just trying to do well by his family, unfortunately just going about it in villainous ways. And long-term effectiveness, I mean, he does give Spider-Man he actually gives Spider-Man the reason to understand why he needs to be Spider-Man. He's still around, too. He's still in the MCU. We could see him show back up. He's been selling weapons. So, I believe there's something called the Judas Bullet in Luke Cage Season 2. Very possibly that was something sold by him. So, at number 5, we have the Vulture. Number 4, we have the Red Skull. One of the very original MCU villains. The Red Skull is one of the most villainous individuals we've ever had. He's a Nazi. Hugo Weaving's on his own is intimidating. Then you just give him that and just give just the stuff he's gonna wipe out the world for the betterment of mankind. He's entertaining as hell for Hugo Weaving's. His fights are good. They're not the best fights, but they're solid. And long-term plan, I mean, come on. He basically froze Captain America. He found the Tesseract. So his long-term effects on the MCU cannot be overstated. Coming in number 3, we have Loki. It comes in at the number 3 spot. There are 2 villains better than Loki for me. Loki, still, it goes without saying, Loki's villainous nature has always been there. But the reason it's so good is because of the duality of the character. You get the feeling that he's not truly evil. And even Thor's like, maybe there is good in you, but our paths diverged a long time ago. You get the feeling that maybe he doesn't want to do this, but he has to get the recognition and the power that he feels he deserves. But he still loved his father. That scene in Thor Ragnarok where it's just like, if they're sitting down with Odin in his last moments, like, I love you, my sons. And you just see the look on Loki's face, like, he's, after everything I've done, he still loves me as a son of a bitch. It's like, damn it. Loki is fantastic. Now, I will say, Loki's actual fights have never been bad, but they've never been fantastic. They've never been like stand out, like oh my god, but they've been solid. His plan and his plans and whatever movies he's in have always been unique. He even actually he's actually one of the few who succeeded in his plan. He actually dethroned Odin for a little bit, and his long-term effects on the MCU cannot be ignored. So you gotta think of Loki and for long term. But we're at the number 2 spot. We only got 2 left. You can probably guess who it's probably going to be, but just in case you're not aware, number 2 is going to be Killmonger from Black Panther. Killmonger. Michael B. Jordan owned that movie. He, despite the fact as good as Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, but he owned that movie. Michael B. Jordan. That was Michael B. Jordan's movie. He was intimidating as hell. He was one of the people who actually, at least temporarily, succeeded in doing it. He beat T'Challa in a fight. Not necessarily in the sense that he would have beaten him regardless. You know, you could tell T'Challa didn't want to be fighting him. So you could tell, there are moments that T'Challa really wanted to end that fight. He could have killed him. But ultimately, it's like, yeah, he's intimidating. He's fierce. He's in shape. He kills, someone who I honestly forgot to put on this list, Claw. He kills Ulysses Claw. His effects on the MCU cannot be overstated because I think some vibranium did end up getting out. And the effects he has on T'Challa for opening up Wakanda's borders. His fights are fantastic. His motivation plan is very, again, unique because it's almost like a Malcolm X kind of thing. It's like our people have been downtrodden for so long. Now it's time for us to rise up and stand against them, and we'll be the rulers now. So, I mean, I loved Killmonger, absolutely. But, and you can probably see this coming, my number 1 is Thanos. Thanos is the only character that got a full 25 out of 25 points on my rating system when thinking this over. Intimidation factor. The minute we see him, we saw that he kicked the entire Asgardian crew's ass. He beat the shit out of Thor. He beat the shit out of Hulk. He chokes out Loki in the first 15 minutes of the film and destroys the ship. The dude is a mad titan for a reason. Entertainment-wise, there is never a moment that I found dull or slow or anything with Thanos. Thanos was intimidating. He was interesting because the thing about Thanos was his overall plan was the plan of technically of a good guy just going about an evil way. You heard him. It's a simple calculus. This universe is finite. Its resources finite. You know, if a culling needs to be done, otherwise. And then he's one of those other guys who has been doing this for years. And it's shown results. It shows it's like, do you know what you wiped out half my population? Do you know what happens now in the 20 years? Kids born on that planet and know nothing but clear skies and full stomachs. It's a paradise. It kind of shows that while he's a psychopath in many ways, maybe not a psychopath, because he clearly feels emotion. A psychopath actually doesn't feel emotion from a medical definition. But while he's kind of crazy, he's made legitimate points, and his points are backed up with that's one of the things about Thanos that is the most, telling is the fact that his points are actually backed up with the results of what he's done. So you have that, and he's the only, I think he's probably the only MCU villain to actually long term he wins. Thanos War is almost out of theaters at this point. Thanos won in the longer. Obviously it's going to be corrected in Avengers 4, but at least in terms of this movie, Thanos won. He wiped out half the universe. He won. And trust me, when we got done with that movie, Carrie particularly was like, what? She needed time to process that ending. Mark, which is like, oh, fuck you. Just like, you're really going to end it like that? It's like, yeah, they are. And I'm like, because we know that's not going to happen. They're going to fix things in the long term. At least on some level, they're going to fix things. Maybe not everyone will be back afterwards. I have a feeling there's going to be some sacrifices in Avengers 4 because they say Phase 4 is going to be very different. But, long term, and of course, you can't talk about without Thanos without the Infinity Gauntlet and the fight sequences we got with the Infinity. That fight on Titan might be one of the best action sequences in the entire MCU movie universe. Maybe one of them. The airport scene is certainly up there. I would argue that the Abomination Hulk fight is one of the best fights. That might be another one, right? Like doing a ranked best fight sequences. which luckily I won't have to do anywhere near as many on that list. So ultimately, look, if you think differently, your list may look entirely different. That's fine, absolutely. I kind of forgot a few people on the list. This video went on for nearly 50 minutes, so. But anyway, that's my ranking of the MCU villains. Now, fortunately, the next ranked videos I do will be nowhere near as long as this video, but that's the way I ranked it. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you even made it this far. I hope you made it to the end. If not, thank you for at least trying to watch it. But thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe as always. You want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Ideas for who would win. Star Wars, superhero, magic, what if, anything you do on the channel, put that in the comments below as well. I'll get to that at some point. Christopher Robin is going to be later tonight, and I'll have a who would win on Friday. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.